Discover 5 incredible secrets to make your money work for you. Transformative stories exposed. In the dim light of her cluttered living room, Claire clutched her grandmother's age journal, her fingers trembling with a mix of hope and disbelief. The stories within felt like a beacon amidst her relentless struggle, a single mother balancing 3 jobs, 2 children, and bills that piled up like garbage bags on a hot summer day. But here she was on the cusp of what? A future that felt as elusive as the wind that brushed through the cornfields at dusk. Did she dare dream of a life beyond just scraping by? She was so exhausted from the hustle that every lingering hope felt like a cruel joke. As Claire flipped through the pages, her heart raced with every scratched-out sentence. Her grandmother had faced adversities too, challenges Claire had never heard of. They were confrontations with scarcity that had been met with resilience and inventive strategies. Each word stirred something deep within her, igniting a flicker of ambition. But under that flicker loomed shadows of doubt. Could she, a struggling single mother, really transform her life? She'd been conditioned to feel like success was reserved for the fortunate, not for those wrestling the weight of their circumstances every day. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the week trudged forward, Claire began applying her grandmother's insights, taking small steps each day. Budgeting became a game, a way to stretch every dollar. She even started to sell handmade crafts online. Inspiration was thrilling, but it was the buzz of the community she feared. Rumors whispered between neighbors, tinged with jealousy and skepticism like a thick fog. How could she, a single mother, seemingly rise when others felt chained by their own struggles? Her newfound energy felt like a spotlight, illuminating her path but also exposing her to harsh scrutiny. At the community meeting, Claire stood straight, her heart threatening to break free as she sensed the crowd's mixed reactions. She had invitations to share what she learned, desperately wanting to craft a narrative that inspired others, but how could she do so without feeling adopted by a judgmental community pouring doubt like rain? What makes you think you're better than the rest of us now? A voice cut through her thoughts, slicing into her heart. The air grew tense. It was as if the walls closed in, suffocating her resolve. Anguish shot through her, tangled with the palpable fear that her transformation was mere illusion. She longed to respond, to share that every effort was born not from a place of superiority, but from sheer survival instinct, a desire to create a stable life for her children. But how could she justify her shift without losing herself to the war on her self-worth? The questions wrestled inside, as she stood alone, torn at the crossroads of judgment and authenticity. What would she say next? Would she become the beacon of hope she envisioned or remain an outsider, forever doubting her place within her own community? With the echoes of skepticism still ringing in her ears, Claire stood at the edge of a precipice within herself. The tension from the community gathering clung to her like a wet blanket, heavy and suffocating. She needed to find a way to emerge from the shadows, not just for herself but for her children, who relied on her strength. The journal had opened a floodgate of possibilities. It was time to delve deeper into her grandmother's lessons. That night, under the dim glow of her desk lamp, Claire pored over the yellowed pages, eager for wisdom. Each entry spoke of resourcefulness, self-advocacy, and an unwavering belief in personal potential. Those words ignited within her a newfound determination. She made notes, extracting practical advice on frugality, side hustles, and community engagement. As days turned into weeks, Claire began to notice small changes in herself. Discipline took root in her daily routine, allowing her to carve out an hour each evening dedicated to her craft business. With a burgeoning sense of purpose, she created unique designs, embracing the intricacies of each piece like a meditative practice. But even as her creations flourished, so did moments of doubt. Could these humble efforts lead to real change? Late one evening, She stumbled across a video featuring a successful entrepreneur who, like her, had once battled against the current of financial struggle. His story resonated deeply, igniting a spark within her heart. "You are your own best investment," he declared, urging the audience to take ownership of their narrative. His words echoed back to her, resonating not just with promise but also with urgency. Fueled by this inspiration, Claire made a decision. She wouldn't just wait for the community's acceptance. She would share her journey openly, inviting others along. She set up a small social media profile, documenting her process and progress. However, vulnerability terrified her. What if the community's doubt consumed her? Yet, the prospect of stifling her voice felt far worse. It was time to combine her need for freedom with the courage to be open. But sharing her journey came with consequences. The following week, she received messages, some supportive, others echoing the same questions the community naysayers posed. How can you pretend to be an expert? What gives you the right to coach others? Each response felt like a sting, threatening to unravel her budding confidence. Yet amid the criticism, Claire found support from unexpected allies, friends who admired her guts and offered encouragement. A local artist reached out after seeing her posts, suggesting a collaboration that could elevate her crafts into a pop-up exhibition. The idea was thrilling yet daunting. What if she failed? As she mulled over the proposition, another thought emerged. Could she not just showcase her work, but also facilitate a workshop, empowering other aspiring creators in her community? The notion of creating a safe space where others could find their footing filled her with both excitement and dread. Claire sat on her bed, heart racing. This could be the turning point, but the voices of doubt haunted her still. Could she abandon the role of the underestimated single mother and step into the spotlight? As she weighed the pros and cons, a familiar feeling rippled through her indecision, marking the balance of failure and possibility. Before she could settle on an answer, her phone buzzed again. It was a notification of a new comment on her latest post. Taking a deep breath, she looked at the screen, feeling the weight of the choice ahead. Was she ready to transform her fears into fuel for growth? She tapped the screen, initiating a reply, where her heart poured out, embracing her journey of transformation in a way she never had before. As the words flowed, Claire realized she was walking the line between vulnerability and empowerment, but the surgery of her self-worth had begun. But would this new journey strengthen her or expose her to further judgment? Claire felt the shadows creeping back, pushing against the doors of her consciousness, teasing her resolve. Would she embark on the collaborative exhibition or retreat into the comfort of anonymity? Claire stared at her phone, the screen twinkling under the soft light of the lamp, the comment section filled with mixed reactions to her latest post. Each message felt like a weight hanging over her head, and she struggled to breathe through the uncertainty. Her heart raced, oscillating between the thrill of sharing her journey and the fear of public scrutiny. With a deep inhale, she turned her gaze back to her sketches scattered across the table. Each design reflected a piece of her evolving identity, a tapestry of dreams woven from threads of doubt and determination. The prospect of the exhibition loomed large, a formidable challenge calling to her, but also igniting something within. Her fingers danced across the paper, drafting ideas for the workshop. What if she included lessons drawn from her grandmother's journal? Each tale could serve as a reminder that growth often stemmed from adversity. The idea felt promising, but self-doubt whispered its chilling refrain. Was she prepared to guide others when she herself felt so unsteady? In quiet moments, she pondered her grandmother's most powerful lesson. Strength lies in vulnerability. Despite the threat of criticism, Claire craved connection and growth not just for herself, but for those who navigated similar struggles. One afternoon, while sorting through supplies, Claire found an old wooden box with craft materials, remnants of her earlier projects. Opening it felt like traveling back in time, each item sparking memories of joy and accomplishment. It reminded her that every effort had shaped who she was today. Gathering strength from those reflections, she began to craft an outline for her workshop, her excitement rapidly outweighing her fears as nights wore on. Claire immersed herself in research, looking at other artists and their workshops. She uncovered tips and tricks, strategies for managing nerves and working with participants, and how to create an inclusive environment where everyone would feel valued. The more she researched, the more confident she became. This was not just about selling her work. It was about inspiring others to find their voice. Yet, even amidst her preparations, lingering fears threatened to suffocate her resolve. How naive was she to believe she could lead others? What if they saw through her facade? The voices nagged at her relentlessly, forcing her to question her ability to teach. Digging deep, Claire found a kernel of frustration within. She resolved to face down this sense of inadequacy. If she truly wanted to empower others, she had to confront her inner critic. With speed, she hit record on her phone. "Hi, I'm Claire," she introduced herself shakily. "I'm nervous about what's coming, but I want to share my journey and encourage others who may feel like I do." Her heart raced as she faltered, feeling ridiculous. Stopping abruptly, she watched the screen flicker. Should she delete it? No. Instead, she forced herself to upload the video unscripted, capturing her raw authenticity. The act of sharing herself felt liberating, and for the first time in a while, she felt an inkling of hope surge within her. The days passed, and on one of those evenings, the artist who initiated the collaborative proposal reached out again. "I've been thinking about our project and feel it's time to set a date for the exhibition," he wrote, excitement brimming through his words. Claire felt the exhilarating anticipation bubble within her while simultaneously battling a wave of nausea. A date. But what if she was not good enough? What if she failed to deliver? Yet, part of her recognized this was her moment, the chance to step into her power and transform not only her life but others as well. In the crucible of that moment, she knew it was time to choose. The choice between remaining in the shadows of self-doubt or boldly stepping into the light of possibility was looming. Could she embrace the uncertainty and move forward, or would she let fear dictate her path again? As she scrolled through her social media feed, a sinking realization gripped her. She was at the brink of an emotional dive, one that held marbles of both risk and reward. With a firm tap on her phone's screen, she typed, summoning every ounce of resolve within her. In her heart, the question pulsed loudly. Was she ready to claim her space in the world? But uncertainty hung thick in the air. Would she truly dare to become a catalyst for others, or retreat back into safety's embrace just as the opportunity drew near? The morning light filtered softly through the window, illuminating Claire's workspace. A heavy breath escaped her as she prepared herself for the day ahead, one that felt steeped in possibilities. Her phone buzzed again with notifications from her last video post. Scrolling through the new comments, she found encouragement mingled with uncertainty. Each reaction seemed to taunt her with the reality of what was coming. Yet, beneath that discomfort lay an ember of excitement. The world was watching, and she had a voice. She had to believe that. Claire returned her focus to the clutter on her table. Sketches, notes, and the remnants of her grandmother's journal. She picked up the yellowed pages, their edges crinkled, and read a few lines that spoke of bravery. "You must stand done, not only for yourself but for those who feel unseen," her grandmother had written. The words resonated painfully yet beautifully, pushing her to ponder her own role in bravely confronting her vulnerabilities. In a moment of defiance against her self-doubt, Claire began drafting an outline for a workshop. She envisioned a space filled with creativity, where others could explore their own vulnerabilities alongside her. These thoughts flowed effortlessly onto the page, each word a step away from fear and toward purpose. However, as the outline transformed into a more structured format, an icy wave of doubt intruded. What if they didn't respond to her? What if her ideas fell flat in front of a crowd? That afternoon, she found herself sitting in a small cafe, an old notebook resting beside her, filled with sketches and reflections. With each sip of her coffee, she contemplated whether the inklings of her grandmother's wisdom would ring true in her own workshop. They were stories steeped in struggle, often about people overcoming their doubts. Were they truly applicable to her reality, and could she share them without feeling fragile? The thought of exposing her fears mixed with her creative expression terrified her. Just as Claire was spiraling into her internal apprehensions, A soft laugh from the next table jolted her. An artist, laughing and discussing her works with a friend, radiated a buoyant energy. Clara's heart pulsed in solidarity. It ignited a flicker of inspiration. A conversation blossomed between them, both women exchanging ideas and experiences. The artist shared how she had battled anxiety before her own exhibit, revealing an unexpected kinship. In that moment, Claire realized vulnerability wasn't a weakness. It was a pathway to deeper connections. The conversation rekindled her motivation, leaving her with newfound clarity. She didn't need to be perfect to lead others. Sharing her experiences, her fears, and her triumphs could very well inspire someone else to do the same. That evening, she found herself once again facing her camera. This time, it felt different. "Today I learned something vital," she spoke, her voice steady. "I realized that vulnerability is a source of strength, not a hindrance. We elevate each other through our shared struggles." As she uploaded the new video, she felt lighter, pushed forward by the invisible thread of authentic connection. But even as exhilaration built, shadows flickered behind her courage. The looming exhibition tethered a nagging anxiety in her chest. What if the artist community she admired so much didn't embrace her? Would she find the resolve to stand alone if the waves of doubt crashed against her? That night, Claire took her outlines, sketches, and memories and arranged them neatly into a binder. She felt a growing urgency to solidify her plans for the workshop, to step out of her own head and manifest her ideas into reality. Yes, she still felt underprepared, but she also sensed the exhilarating possibility of growth. A single question lingered as she closed the binder before finally drifting to sleep. Could she transform her emotional vulnerability into a bridge, bringing those who resonated with her story alongside her into the light? In the depths of her reflection, an unsettling vision loomed. It wasn't merely about the exhibition anymore. It was about facing who she could become in the light of her fears. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but tonight, one thought danced in her mind with electrifying clarity. The time had come to face her greatest fear of all, her own perceived limitations. Would she finally rise to the challenge, or would she falter again, retreating behind the walls of her comfort? Morning found Claire enveloped in a fog of restless energy. The sunbeam tracing across her workspace felt like a magnifying glass, intensifying her waves of anxiety. She shifted in her chair, staring at her binder, now overflowing with ideas for her workshop. But along with inspiration came the gnawing specter of doubt. Could she truly lead others through the labyrinth of vulnerability? Taking a deep breath, Claire thumbed through her grandmother's journal once more, seeking comfort in the familiar handwriting that had guided her for years. Today she would take a different approach. Instead of wrestling with her fear, she would confront it head-on and transform it into a source of empowerment. With a determination edging on mania, Claire grabbed her sketch pad and a pencil, letting the thoughts spill onto the page. This time, she focused not solely on the workshop, but on the larger narrative. She wanted to share the story of her journey, complete with failures, anxieties, and the quiet victories she had experienced. Each stroke of her pencil felt like wielding a sword against her insecurities, carving a path to self-discovery and connection. The turning point came when she decided to post a live video that evening, not only to reveal her workshop but to peel back the layers of her emotional landscape. "This will be my scaffolding, my moment to show the world, including myself, who I truly am." The thought invigorated her, yet fear twisted the edges of that excitement. As the clock ticked closer to her scheduled broadcast, Claire's heart thudded relentlessly against her ribcage. She practiced in front of the mirror, rehearsing her lines as if they were mantras. "I am not perfect. I am not finished." In this raw moment of preparation, a thought pierced through her nervousness. She had something crucial to offer: the truth of being a work in progress. Many women, she realized, existed in a constant state of flux, battling their internal critic while striving for external approval. The camera flickered to life, bright but less intimidating than she had imagined. As she began speaking, Claire felt a rush of empowerment. "Hello, everyone," her voice rang steady. "Today I want to talk about the spaces we hide in the emotional corners we often feel too afraid to expose. She pressed on, detailing specific moments of doubt, weaving in vivid examples of how those moments shaped her creative process. In her own revelations, Claire found that she was inviting others to reflect within themselves. Comments flooded in, full of resonance and empathy, offering reflection rather than judgment. Voices she had never met appeared, sharing their fears and vulnerabilities too. It was exhilarating but also unnerved her. Would these connections remain ephemeral, or could they nurture something lasting? As the sun dipped low, illuminating her workspace in warm hues, Claire ended the session, her heart racing. It felt as if she had bared her soul, revealing not just her ambitions but her frailties. Throughout the night, adrenaline coursed through her veins, blurring the lines between anxiety and excitement. In that moment, a sense of liberation unfolded. If vulnerability had created such powerful connections, what other frontiers could she explore? The answer was as daunting as it was invigorating. The workshop was no longer merely an event. It had transformed into a mission, a quest for self-discovery, both for Claire and her attendees. She felt it as a calling, a lighthouse guiding those adrift in their perceived limitations. She stood before her binder again, this time with a new resolve. Shadows of uncertainty lingered in the back of her mind. Could she continue this momentum? That thought twisted in her gut as she contemplated her next moves. As she sank into her thoughts, a flicker of doubt ignited. If she thrived on this kind of exposure, could she handle the possibility of negativity or criticism? What if opening herself further meant subjecting herself to vulnerability she couldn't control? With anticipation brewing, Claire took a deep breath, grounding herself, knowing she had ignited a fire within. What path would this flame illuminate next? Would it lead her closer to self-acceptance? Or would the obstacles ahead grow more imposing? The real challenge lay ahead, and she felt both exhilarated and terrified to confront it. The question loomed. Could Claire transform this newfound vulnerability into a mechanism for sustained personal growth? The next morning, Claire rose early, her mind still whirring from the adrenaline of the night before. Her heart still danced with the echoes of connections made, but the initial rush of empowerment was now burdened by a heavy realization she had crossed a threshold. The spotlight now shone not just on her hopes, but on the vulnerability she'd exposed. As sunlight streamed through the window, Claire's first instinct was to review the comments from her video. A mixture of encouragement and candid criticism awaited her. She scrolled through them, her stomach tightening with each keystroke. A few affirmations glimmered amidst the skeptics who doubted the efficacy of her workshop. What makes you think you can guide others? One comment questioned bluntly. It pierced through her burgeoning confidence, a reminder that exposure often came with scrutiny. Instead of retreating, Claire sat at her desk, determined to learn from the feedback. She began jotting down ways to address concerns and iterations for her workshop. What if this criticism, rather than pushing her down, could fuel her growth? Each critique became fodder for deeper reflection. With each point noted, an idea emerged. Perhaps an interactive segment in her workshop could focus on addressing fears directly, instigating open discussions about negativity as a force of growth. Encouraged, Claire grabbed her sketchpad and began drafting ideas for the workshop's structure. She could create a platform not just to share her story but also to learn from others. The purpose tingled at the back of her mind. A shared vulnerability could unveil connections deeper than she imagined. Could this challenge enhance not only her skill in leading but also the collective growth of everyone involved? The day slipped away as Claire lost herself in the creative process. The colors of her sketches began to blur, while she imagined how she would encourage her participants to share their challenges and voices. Her hands moved quickly over the pages, each drawing transforming her fear into an outline for exploration, an escape route from isolation. Even as ideas flourished, an undercurrent of anxiety pulsed beneath. What if opening herself further ignited more criticism? The thought sank deep, triggering self-doubt. How could she expose her journey and facilitate others when her own battles still felt so raw? With her pen trembling above the page, Claire confronted the voice of criticism echoing in her mind. Who am I to seek validation? She thought. But doesn't the act of sharing ultimately strengthen resilience? Answering her internal questions, Claire recognized that her vulnerabilities did not erase her authority to lead. If anything, they fortified her resolve to provide a space for growth. Experiencing these fears rendered her even more relatable. A revelation struck her. The very core of vulnerability comes not from a flawless presentation, but from the grit of grappling through challenges. This was an opportunity, a chance to metamorphose her apprehension into a teaching tool, empowering both herself and her attendees to embrace their imperfections. With newfound fervor, Claire crafted a clear intention for her workshop. It would be a celebration of shared struggles, resonating authenticity amid the pulse of doubt. Chasing that vision, she mapped out a roadmap that emphasized continual evolution and acceptance of life's imperfections. However, a nagging thought intruded. What would happen when she faced the occasional participant resistant to embrace vulnerability? Questions loomed over her confidence. Would she falter in moments of confrontation, doubting her ability to facilitate guided discussions on fears that felt unmanageable? Exhausted but exhilarated, Claire stepped back to gaze at her collection of notes and sketches. It was messy and unpolished, mirroring the chaos of personal growth. Yet it crackled with energy, a living tapestry of discovery interwoven with threads of vulnerability. As she set down her pencil, reality hit her like a jolt. The time would come, inevitably, when she would truly test her resolve, when she would meet a wall that didn't just shake her faith, but demanded a confrontation she had prepared for but never fully anticipated. In that moment of clarity, Claire understood. Genuine growth demanded not just highlighting strengths, but embracing resistance, too. It was a wild dance of acceptance amidst adversity. The horizon of her journey gleamed ahead, but an unsettling realization sank in deep. Could Claire navigate this tumult beneath the spotlight, or crumble under the weight of expectation? With her path illuminated, one question illuminated as brightly as the thoughts she deepened: how far would she go to ensure the promise of vulnerability met with understanding? The answer lay ahead, beckoning her into uncharted waters. The clock ticked steadily, marking the passage of time as Claire prepared for the inevitable challenges that awaited her in the workshop. Days merged into nights, and she found herself enveloped in a whirlwind of strategies, anticipating every possible reaction from her participants. The weight of her ambitions clung to her shoulders, both exhilarating and suffocating. It was not merely the logistics of planning that consumed her thoughts, but the raw truth that lay beneath. She had become a beacon for personal transformation. Even as her own path wavered, every pen stroke felt like an unveiling, each sketch dense with promise yet tinged with uncertainty. Claire spent her evenings immersed in books about group dynamics and the psychology of vulnerability, hoping to unlock techniques that would bridge the gap between knowledge and her lived experience. She envisioned herself standing before a room full of expectant faces, each one reflecting a unique tapestry of struggles. Yet, could she really guide them if she was still grappling with her own insecurities? The morning of the workshop arrived, bringing an unsettling mix of excitement and dread. Claire stood before the mirror, running a hand through her hair as her reflection offered no answers, only a silent plea for courage. What if her voice trembled? What if she stumbled over her words in front of those individuals seeking guidance? It was a reality check, a confrontation with her deepest fears. But what if that very vulnerability resonated with them more than polished perfection ever could? She shook her head, striving to quell the inner critic that loomed like an omnipresent shadow. The workshop space was a blank canvas, awaiting the strokes of passion and authenticity she hoped to impart. Her heart raced as participants began to trickle in. She decorated the room with her sketches, every piece a testament to her journey, each one a reassurance that shared stories carried transformative power. As the chairs filled, Claire's confidence flickered like a candle in the wind. Underneath her composed exterior, her thoughts spiraled. What if they were met with resistance? Just as she readied herself to welcome the group, a familiar face cut through the crowd. Jessica, a former colleague who had once ridiculed her ambitions. A pang of disquiet rippled through Claire. Why was she here? What was her intention? Claire's mind raced with the potential for confrontation. Would Jessica's presence act as a barrier to her success? Or could it transform into a lesson about acceptance, a chance to circle back and confront her fear head-on? As the session began, Claire collected herself, pushing aside her spiraling doubts. With a deep breath, she launched into her introductory pitch, her voice wavering slightly yet holding an undeniable spark. The participants sat rapt, a mixture of intrigue and anticipation hanging in the air. She laid the groundwork, emphasizing the theme of vulnerability as a source of strength. Moments later, a hand shot up. Mark, a participant with discernible frustration, challenged her perspective. Why should we embrace our weaknesses? Isn't it just a way to excuse failure? His words pierced through the initial warmth of the room, each syllable echoing her earlier fears. The possibility of a collision, an opening for discord, danced ominously in her mind. Clara's heart raced as she faced him. This was the very moment she had anticipated, a test of her resolve that pushed her to define her value as a leader. She could retreat to safety or confront the challenge. Taking a deep breath, she replied, "Embracing our weaknesses doesn't diminish our potential. It allows us to examine our journey and recognize growth, making us more relatable and resilient." To her surprise, the room buzzed with murmurs of agreement and dissent. The tension transformed into a discussion, and Claire steered the conversation with a newfound clarity. The initial wave of resistance began to dissolve, replaced by shared stories and revelations. As she navigated conflicting opinions, Claire felt the edges of her doubts soften. She realized that each confrontation she faced wasn't just a test, it was an opportunity for connection, a way to spark understanding. With every exchange, she felt her confidence swell, bolstered by the realization that she wasn't alone in her struggles. By the end of the workshop, participants expressed gratitude, sharing insights that had emerged amid their vulnerabilities. Claire basked in the realization that growth could flicker in the most challenging moments. Yet, amidst feelings of success, the shadow of uncertainty persisted. If her encounter with Jessica had unraveled so much, what would happen if others harbored similar doubts? Claire knew her true journey was just beginning. As participants filed out, the ambient chatter mingled with Claire's thoughts. The engagement had ignited something within her, but she also sensed that deeper tests awaited. Could she handle the inevitable clashes in belief and perspective that lay ahead? The workshop had thrust her into the light, but how long would she remain steadfast beneath the growing scrutiny? As she gathered her materials, an unsettling realization settled in. Real vulnerability came not just from opening up but from sustaining that openness in the face of conflict. And that was a challenge she had yet to fully embrace. As the last participant stepped through the door, Claire's heart raced anew with the thrill of accomplishment. Yet the buzz of activity masked the whispers of doubt still ricocheting in her mind. She glanced at Jessica, who lingered at the back, a smirk carved on her face. It felt like a subtle taunt, a resurgence of old insecurities she thought she had left behind. Taking a deep breath, Claire approached her. "I saw you here. What did you think?" Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the armor of confidence she had donned earlier. Would her inquiry open a door, or would it swing wide into the past she could not afford to revisit? Jessica feigned thoughtfulness, her lips curving into a mocking smile. "It was enlightening, Claire. I didn't know you had it in you." The condescension stung, but Claire understood better than to allow it to derail her. "I'm glad you found value in it. I've been working hard to explore these ideas." Jessica tilted her head, eyes narrowing. "Working hard? Or just taking advantage of other people's struggles to make yourself feel important?" The jab landed harder than she'd like to admit. Claire pressed her lips together, feeling the heat rise in her chest. She had dared to embrace her weakness in front of strangers. Could she do the same in this confrontation? The room felt stifling, the air thickened by emotions locked within. "I hope you can see that everyone's journey is personal and complex," Claire countered, mustering her calm. "My goal is to help people find their strength, not to diminish theirs." The moment hung heavy, and Claire felt exposed. Yet in that space of tension, an unexpected resolve began to crystallize. Jessica had once commanded authority in Claire's professional landscape. Now, her presence was a note of discord. This confrontation could either splinter her sense of self or galvanize it. "Let me know how you feel about it after a few more sessions," Jessica called, tossing the challenge like a stone. With that, she slipped from the room, leaving Claire alone with the echo of her words. The workshop had ended, but here, a different type of challenge bloomed. Claire understood she might need to confront similar perspectives throughout her journey. To nurture her growth as a leader, she could not shy away from confrontation, especially when it came from voices intertwined with her history. In the days that followed, Claire found herself oscillating between periods of empowerment and bouts of self-doubt. She redefined her workshop strategies, integrating techniques to not just welcome feedback but anticipate confrontation, turning it into a dialogue rather than a battle. Her evenings were filled with mental rehearsals, imagining scenarios where resistance could arise. She embraced the thought that every challenge was an invitation for deeper understanding. It was during one of these reflections that she discovered an article about transformative confrontation. Leaders who thrived had one trait in common: they practiced active listening. Claire resolved then to hone this skill, vowing to dismantle her own biases and create a safe space for even the most disruptive perspectives. Yet, an unsettling thought persisted. Was she truly ready to engage not just with participants but with her inner demons at the forefront of these conflicts? Would she fully embrace the vulnerability of her own journey? As her calendar filled with new workshop dates, and the planning stretched before her like an uncharted road, Claire felt the anticipation building. Each meeting would hold the possibility of conflict, revelation, and perhaps confrontation with those who might challenge her resolve, just like Jessica. That notion both thrilled and terrified her. With resolve swelling in her chest, Claire turned to her sketches, pinning them back onto the wall, each one a reminder of her purpose. The old doubts were fading, giving way to something bolder. But would she rise to meet the challenges ahead, or would she falter under the weight of expectation? The ticking clock now served as a constant reminder that the moment to put everything she had learned into action was approaching, prompting the question that loomed most prominently before her. How far would she go to maintain her authenticity amid emerging conflicts? As the next workshop loomed larger on her calendar, one thought circled in her mind with increasing clarity: the time had come to face the true essence of who she had become, and who she still could be. The day of her next workshop arrived with an intensity that matched the weather-gray clouds looming overhead, mirroring the complexities swirling within Claire. As she prepared the space, arranging chairs in a semicircle and laying out her notes, her thoughts raced. Would she encounter more skepticism, or would the clash of ideas forge a stronger connection with her participants? As the clock struck the hour, she straightened her back and inhaled sharply, steeling herself. The first few faces entered, eyes scanning the room, and Claire recognized a mix of curiosity and apprehension reflected back at her. This was her chance not just to teach but to model vulnerability, an idea she had wrestled with since the last confrontation. "Welcome, everyone," Claire began, her voice steady but warm. "Today we'll be exploring the power of transformative confrontation. I want you to know that any question or comment you make is completely valid." She scanned the audience, looking for a sign of acceptance. Encouragement sparked within her as heads nodded, albeit hesitantly as the session progressed. Claire encouraged participants to share experiences of conflict they had faced, framing it as a pivotal moment of growth. To her surprise, each story told was laden with emotional weight struggles she recognized from her own journey. She learned the importance of listening, of creating space for their emotions while she shared her reflections. This was the essence of active engagement she aspired to embody. Just as the discussions began to deepen, one participant, a young woman named Nina, raised her hand. "Confrontation terrifies me. How can I address issues when I'm scared of damaging relationships?" The question echoed Claire's own fears, reverberating through her mind. How had she managed to confront Jessica when her heart wanted to retreat? She chose honesty. "I felt that fear too, Nina. I learned that being authentic means risking discomfort. But it's in those moments of discomfort that we find our strength. Let me share what helped me." With clarity, Claire recounted her encounter with Jessica, purposefully revealing her doubts and the internal struggle. The vulnerability she shared morphed the atmosphere in the room. The tension dissipated and was replaced by empathy. There was a palpable bond forming, a quiet understanding that allowed honest discourse to flourish. Nina's eyes widened, revealing a sense of relief as she replied, "I never thought of it that way. Maybe confronting my fears could actually strengthen my relationships." As the workshop continued, Claire felt a wave of empowerment flow through her, a recognition that her struggles provided a catalyst for others' growth too. The dialogue became organic, each participant, including herself, engaging in moments of reflection that shifted her perspective away from self-doubt and towards something more profound: solidarity and vulnerability. Yet, as energy built in the room, an old shadow hovered at the edges of her consciousness. Jessica's words still echoed, challenging her efforts. Would she falter if faced with another test? With the workshop nearing its close, Claire posed a question to the group. What do you fear in confronting someone who challenges you? The question hung in the air, demanding reflection. In the reflective silence that followed, Claire sensed a crossroads. She could feel the weight of her own ambivalence. Was this space truly safe enough for all voices? The realization struck her like a bolt of lightning. If she wanted to be the leader she aspired to be, she had to fully commit to this journey, barriers and all. As participants began to voice their fears about confrontation, Claire's resolve solidified. Each response chipped away at her lingering doubts, urging her toward authenticity. But then one thought pierced her focused moment, a realization that ignited a newfound urgency within her. Was she, in her pursuit of fostering growth, also confronting the ghost of her past, of fearing what someone like Jessica might bring into her future? Claire felt the tension in her muscles coil as empowerment and apprehension locked in a silent battle. The question loomed large: how truly ready was she to face conflict, especially when it came with faces etched deep into her memories? And as the closing circle of the workshop neared, she girded herself for the challenges still lying ahead, uncertain yet determined to uncover the full spectrum of her own capability. With that evolving tension, Claire knew the next confrontation could come in an unimagined form. The prospect bore down on her like an approaching storm breaking over the horizon. Claire stood in front of her workshop participants, clarity anchoring her spirit. This time, she felt a solid confidence rise within her. The conversations that had flowed organically made it clear. Vulnerability fostered connection, and her own battles were a credential, not a hindrance. Emboldened by the supportive atmosphere she nurtured, she realized the workshop wasn't just her vehicle for empowerment. It had become a mirror reflecting her extraordinary growth. The week after that transformative workshop, Claire found herself confronted with yet another challenge. She was invited to speak at a local business fair, sharing her journey and the concept of vulnerability as a strength. This was a significant step from her earlier self, who had hesitated at every corner, fearful of judgment and scrutiny. She closed her eyes, visualizing her grandmother's journal, the stories of resilience, and the evolution she'd undergone. The moment had arrived. Her voice would echo beyond her immediate circles. With renewed purpose, she meticulously crafted her presentation, intertwining her journey with actionable insights her audience could relate to. Claire explored budgeting strategies that had initially seemed insurmountable, frugality as a form of creativity, and the profound connections that blossomed amidst vulnerability. Each narrative was a tapestry of personal struggle, achievement, and collective understanding. The day of the fair dawned bright and full of promise. As she took the stage, a wave of pulse-quickening nerves rushed through her. Her hands shook slightly, but she took a deep breath, remembering the faces of those she had inspired. "Good afternoon, everyone," she started, her voice steady and resonant, the audience's attentive gaze washing over her like a soothing balm. "Today, I want to talk about the beauty of embracing our insecurities, and how doing so can lead us toward our true potential." With every word, Claire conjured her stories, not out of performance but from a wellspring of personal authenticity. The skepticism she wrestled with in earlier moments faded away like an unneeded burden. As her stories unfolded of selling handmade crafts, launching workshops, and threading connections with community members, Claire witnessed heads nodding in recognition. The audience connected to her struggles, their shared laughter punctuating her anecdotes, knitting them closer. In a pivotal moment, she paused and asked, How many of you have felt uncertain in your journey? How many have encountered others who challenged your dreams? Hands shot up across the crowd, eyes radiant with shared vulnerability. Together, they broached the topic of perceived limitations and the daunting fear of conflict. The dialogue blossomed, and Claire navigated it with finesse. As she engaged with attendees during a Q&A, the conversations felt electric. There was a synergy rooted in mutual respect and shared experience. By the end, Claire recognized her achievement. Not only had she spoken her truth, but she had also facilitated a movement, a collective act of stepping into one's own power. The audience erupted into applause, and Claire felt the warmth of validation envelop her. After the event, Claire received messages of gratitude from attendees, eager to connect and share their own stories. Their words of encouragement filled her heart. She had accomplished not just a personal victory but a broader impact. She felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The tensions with Jessica had transformed into clarity. You don't need to prove worth to anyone, she thought as she reflected. Your strengths and struggles are your greatest teachers. By embracing her vulnerability, she also unlocked doors for others to follow suit. Her journey had become a catalyst for growth, an inspiring chapter not only in her life but for those around her. Her established position as a community figure who fostered empowerment was no longer a distant dream. It was now a reality. Claire gazed back at her life's narrative, recognizing a profound evolution. She had gone from a woman burdened by disbelief to a beacon of transformative strength. As the sun set that evening, Claire opened her grandmother's journal one last time, the pages filled with her own reflections now interwoven with her grandmother's insights. She penned a new entry, a promise to herself. She would continue to embrace vulnerability, foster connections, and inspire others to find their voices. This was her moment. She had burgeoned into a manifestation of her dreams, setting a precedent not only in her life but, dare she say, in the lives of others. Claire had transformed adversity into action, fear into success, and her confidence now radiated like the bright horizon before her. Dear audience, if you resonated with Claire's journey, you need to subscribe now to this channel to witness more amazing stories of personal transformation and empowerment. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to ensure these powerful narratives continue reaching those who need them. Comment below with your thoughts and reactions. Did this journey inspire you? Finally, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who could benefit from a story that fuels courage and resilience. Let us spread the message of overcoming together.